So now we will continue with our documentary evidences with dying declaration. It is a written or oral statement of a person dying as a result of any criminal act about the material facts of cause of his death or the circumstances. If possible, executive magistrate should be called to record the declaration, and if it is not possible, then the doctor will himself record the evidence in presence of two witnesses. There is no need to take declaration under the oath, as it is believed that the person who is dying will not tell lie. The doctor should certify that the person is conscious and his mental faculties are normal before a statement is recorded. The statement should be recorded in the dying person's own words without any alteration or without any leading question. If something is not clear, the question must be asked to clear the things, and the signature of the declarant or the thumb impression is to be taken. The doctor and the witness should also sign the declaration. If the statement is written by the declarant himself, it should be signed by him, the doctor and the witness. The declaration is admissible against accused who killed the declarant and the other person involved in the incident. So this declaration is admissible against the person who is accused or the persons who are involved in the criminal activity. The declaration is sent to the magistrate in a sealed cover. If the declarant survives, the declaration is not admitted but has corroborative value, and the person is called to give oral evidence. So this is dying declaration. There is another term which is dying deposition. It is a statement of a person on oath recorded by the magistrate in the person of accused or his lawyer, who is allowed to cross-examine the witness. This procedure is not followed in India. In India, dying declaration is used, but not the dying deposition. Dying deposition is different from dying declaration. In dying declaration, there was no. In dying deposition, the statement is recorded under oath. There was no mention for the presence of the accused or the lawyer of the accused in dying declaration. In dying deposition, the accused himself or the lawyer of the accused will be present there, and they can cross-examine the person. Okay? This procedure is not for. Now the oral evidence. First we discussed written or documentary evidences. Now oral evidences. Oral evidences can be direct, indirect or circumstantial, or hearsay. Evidence of fact which is actually an issue, for example, an electric blanket that has caused injury, or a prescription or a consent form, this is direct. So the direct evidence is the document or the thing which is issued directly in support of fact. Indirect or circumstantial, these are collateral evidences which are not directly associated, but an interpretation can be drawn and are consistent with the direct evidence. And hearsay, it is any statement produced in court by any person which he did not witness directly, but is based on information given by others. It means that what I heard from others, I am presenting it as an evidence. This is hearsay. I was not present directly at the site of crime, but what other people say about that crime, I heard that and I am presenting it as an evidence. This is hearsay. Now the exception to oral evidence. 9. Dying declaration. Dying declaration was an oral evidence, but it is not considered under oral evidence. Or the expert opinion expressed in a treatise may be proved in court by producing books without calling author for oral evidence. Like something is presented in a court from a book. The source of evidence is a book which is written by some author. In this case, the author who has written that book will not be called in court, but the book will be presented in court as an evidence. Evidence of a doctor recorded in a lower court is accepted in a higher court, provided it is recorded and attested on magistrate in the presence of the accused, but can be called if evidence is deficient or need further explanation. So another exception to oral evidence is if evidence or any statement that was given by a doctor in a lower court and it was attested or certified by the magistrate of that court, then it is admissible in higher court, right? Then there is no need to call that doctor again to produce his statement, except in those cases where the higher court feels that there is some deficiency or there are some facts which needs to be cleared. Then in such circumstance, the doctor can be called in court. Otherwise, the evidence that was presented in lower court will be acceptable. Evidence given by a witness in a previous judicial proceeding, in future judicial proceeding, if witness is dead or cannot be found or cannot give evidence. A witness gave his evidence in the court. Now the person is dead, or the person cannot be called in court. Then in that case, the previous statement will be admissible. Evidence of mint officer or an officer of the India security race. Mint, you know what is mint? Mint is like factory where the currency is printed. Reports of certain government scientific experts, for example, reports by chemical examiner, chief inspector of explosives, director fingerprint bureau, director central state forensic science laboratories, etc. So the report which is prepared by the government experts, specific experts, then they not need to present in the court, but this report is admissible in court. Public records, a record kept in a public office, for example, birth and death certificates, certificates of marriage, etc., is admissible in evidence without oral testimony. So the death certificate, birth certificate, marriage certificate, these are the certificates which are present in government offices, like Nagar Nigam prepares this certificate. So these certificates can be presented in court without any oral testimony or without any oral witnesses. Now the witnesses. It is a person who gives sworn testimony as evidence in court regarding fact. First we discussed evidence, right? Second is witness. Witness is any person who produces this information or who presents in court to give information regarding the facts on which the proceeding is occurring in court. The witness can be a common witness or expert witness. A witness can be a common person or can be an expert person. Now the common witness, it is a person who gives sworn testimony about the information of facts observed by him. So a common witness, common witness is a common person who gives his testimony under the oath about the facts, what he observed. He just gives information about what he sees or what he observed. In case of expert witness, it is a person who is trained or skilled and has scientific or technical knowledge and is able to interpret the information and facts observed by him or her or by others and draw opinion and conclusion from common person gives information what he saw, what he observed, but expert witness is a person who is able to give his evidence, his witnessing, or is able to draw any opinion or conclusion from the facts given by others or from the facts what he observed, right? Now, hostile witness. The witness for whom it is supposed that he is hiding some truth due to any interest or motive or giving completely false evidence. So, hostile witness is a witness who was told by a side, and now it is supposed that he is hiding the facts or he is giving some misinformation or false information. Then that person is considered as hostile witness. The court has power to declare a witness hostile on suggestion of lawyer who is summoned and can be examined by him. So, the person will be declared or the witness will be declared as a hostile witness on the request of the lawyer who has called that witness. And now, once the court declares him as hostile witness, then the lawyer can cross-examine the witness. Perjury. It is giving willful, false or fabricated evidence even after being legally bound by an oath. It occurs when earlier statement regarding the fact does not reconcile with subsequent statement. So, perjury is giving false information knowingly. It is willful giving of false information by a person who is legally bound to present or to give the real facts. The person who is bound or who is sworn to give real facts, if he gives false information with his will or knowingly, then it is perjury. The witness is liable to be prosecuted for perjury and the imprisonment may extend to 7 years. If a witness is found that he is giving willful false information, then the court can give punishment with the punishment of imprisonment that can be extended up to 7 years. Now the next is record of evidence. The evidence of the witness is recorded under section 138 to 159 of Indian Evidence Act and Indian Oath Act 44, section 2, 4 and 6 as follows. Oath. The witness has to take an oath in the witness book before he gives his evidence. The oath is given in the name of God. Oath is essential and it holds witness responsible for the consequences of his evidence. So what is oath? Oath is simply swearing in. It is simply swearing in or swear in the name of God. The oath is taken in the witness box by any person who is giving evidence or who is giving any statement, and under this oath the person is liable or bound to give the correct information. If under the oath he provides or he gives false evidences, then he is liable or he can be punished by the court. Now first, examination in chief or direct examination. Now how the witness or witness presents his statement and how is examined, it will be discussed now. So the first, examination in chief or direct examination. This is the first examination of a witness. Questions are asked by the lawyer which has summoned him. Actually, the witness is called by either side of the parties. It can be called by the party of the accused one, or it can be called by the party of victim, or the lawyer of the accused or lawyer of the victim. So first, in direct examination, the person will be examined by the lawyer who has called him or who has summoned him. In criminal acts, the state become a party instead of the affected person. All we know that the state is the party in case of criminal case. In a criminal case, the prosecution has to prove guilty and the accused is presumed to be innocent till the contrary is proved. In criminal cases, it is the responsibility of the prosecutor or the state to prove the person accused. Okay? It is not liability of the accused to prove himself an innocent. It is the liability of the victim side or the prosecution who has to prove the other person as guilty. Otherwise, it is assumed that the person who is claimed to be accused is innocent. He is not involved in the criminal activity. The object is to elicit all relevant convincing facts and the expert witness can give interpretation. Leading questions are not allowed except in those cases where the judge is satisfied that the witness is hostile. Usually leading questions are not allowed in the court hearings except in the case when a witness has been declared as a hostile witness. The effect of the question and the answer is recorded indirectly and not in the form of the question and answer. The effect of the question and answer is recorded indirectly. So this leading question doesn't apply for direct examination or the first examination. Right? In further examinations, leading questions can be asked, but in direct examination, leading question cannot be asked. Except in the case when the lawyer or the party has called a witness and who become hostile. Then only that case the witness can be cross-examined by the lawyer, right? Then in that case, leading questioning is allowed. Now the cross-examination. Now the cross-examination is the questioning by the opposition lawyer. Direct examination was done by the lawyer who has summoned the witness. Now the cross-examination is done by the lawyer that is opposite to the party who called the witness. In a criminal case, the defense witness is cross-examined by public prosecutor. And the public prosecutor is the person who is representing the state, right? The lawyer who is presenting the state is public prosecutor. The objectives are to elicit facts favorable to his case, to test the accuracy of the statements, to modify or explain what has been said, to develop new or old facts, to discredit the witness and to remove any undue or excessive emphasis which may have been given to any of them. So in case of direct examination, the objective was to produce the facts, to produce the observation. Now in case of cross-examination, what is the objective? The objective is to elicit facts which are favorable to his case. Means the prime motto or the motto is to bring the facts which can favor the party of the lawyer or the party from which side lawyer is asking the questions. Many facts are given by the witness in the direct examination. Number of facts has been presented by the witness. Now, if the lawyer who is cross-examining the witness feels that there are some facts which can favor his proceeding, which can favor the cross-examining lawyer, then he tries to bring that facts. Second, to test the accuracy of the statement, whatever the facts that have been presented by the witness now are cross-verified by the cross-examining lawyer just to validate the facts. To modify or explain what has been said, he cross-examines the victims so that if any fact needs to be correct, that can be corrected. To develop new or old facts, means the facts which were not given in the direct examination, these are drawn here. To discredit the witness, discredit means to present the witness as not to be loyal for that case. Okay, it means that the witness, what the fact has been produced by the witness are not acceptable or not legitimate or not true. To remove any undue or excessive emphasis which have been given to any of them. Leading question can be asked here, right? Re-examination. Examination was done by the lawyer who has called the witness. Cross-examination was done by the lawyer of the opposition. Now again the lawyer who has summoned the witness will re-examine. The object is to correct any mistake or to clarify or add details to the statement that the witness has made in cross-examination. In cross-examination, there was objective to bring new facts or old facts. Now the lawyer tries to validate that information. The witness should not bring in any new matter at this stage. The opposing lawyer has right to re-cross-examination on the new point raised. Although new matters cannot be given in this stage, but if any new point is given, then the re-cross-examination can be done by opposition lawyer. Leading questions are again not allowed. Questions by judge. First was direct examination, second was cross-examination, third was re-examination. Of fourth is questions by judge. The judge may ask any question about any facts at any stage of the examination to clear up any doubt. The court has power to recall and re-examine the witness. Conduct and duties of the doctor in the witness box. What are the duties? How a doctor should conduct in, how should a doctor should behave in the witness box? First, be well prepared with the details of your evidence before entering the box. Anticipate certain likely questions on it and be prepared to answer these in advance. It may be necessary to study the literature on the subject about which he is likely to be cross-examined. The doctor should be prepared for his examination and re-examination. If he needs to gather information about that fact matter, he should read the books so that he can answer confidently. Take all reports and relevant reports that may be quoted in the box. All information, all evidences, all reports should be present with the doctor. Do not discuss the case with anyone in court except the lawyer by whom you were asked to testify. Be well dressed and modest, stand up straight, be relaxed and calm, and not frightened or nervous. Be confident, never attempt to memorize and refresh your memory from copies of report. Speak slowly, distinctly, and audibly so that the judge can record your evidence. Look people in the eye when you speak, for it gives the impression of honesty. Eye to eye contact. Speak with assurance. Use simple language. Avoid technical terms. proper titles such as Sir or Your Honor. Avoid difference between your report and your testimony. If an error or slight contradiction has been made in the testimony, admit it and correct it. Do not underestimate the medical knowledge of the lawyer. Be pleasant, polite, and courteous to the lawyer. Do not avoid a question. Say, I do not know if you don't know. Never become hostile, angry, rude, or sarcastic during questioning. Do not lose your temper. Any angry witness is often a poor witness, and the effectiveness of his testimony is diminished or destroyed. Defense lawyers may irritate the witness into anger by unfair question, abuse, or unfair remarks. The witness should remain calm and keep his temper. Do not agree, just disagree. If you do not agree, disagree firmly and repeatedly. Don't be too anxious to please or too eager to fight. Retain independence of your mind. Be honest, impartial, unbiased, and truthful. A biased expert is a useless expert. Be frank to admit any points in favor of the accused if that is the truth. Speak only of facts which come within your personal knowledge. Do not alter your findings to what is said in a statement to be the facts. The doctor should tell it as it is and should not choose sides. Listen carefully to the question. Do not hesitate to ask to have a question repeated. If you do not understand it, if still it is not clear, say so frankly for the lawyer to reframe the question. Give yourself time to think. Avoid long discussions. Consider all aspects of the question before answering it. Answer only what is asked. If you believe the question is unfair or that the lawyer is teasing you excessively, look at your lawyer before answering. If he fails to object, turn to the judge and ask whether you should answer the question. Do not overemphasize replies to question from the cross-examining lawyer. You may use an opportunity to insert a positive point that you have omitted during your chief examination, but be careful not to provoke a new line of questioning. Watch for double question and questions that include an assumption of facts which have not been proven. You are an authority in this particular case as you have examined the patient or the dead body and have specific medical knowledge about it. What applies to many cases in general may not apply to this particular case. So what is general is not essential to be applicable in all cases. Express an opinion from your own knowledge and experience. Say, in my opinion. When the opinion relates to quantity or number, it should be stated within certain limits. Unless an exact answer can be given. For example, the age of an individual. Keep the opinion within the limits of reasonable medical certainty. Do not draw outside your particular field of competence. When asked to comment upon the competence of a colleague, avoid any insulting remark. If he is competent, say so, but without superlative. If you do not wish to make any statement, say you have no opinion. Adopt the published opinion of the writers on the subject as his own opinion. The published work need not to be produced in the court. When lawyer quotes a passage from a textbook and asks the witness whether he agrees with it, the doctor must always take the precaution before answering of reading the portion which is quoted to him and also reading the paragraph before and after the quoted passage. Since it may be taken out of context, and he should satisfy himself that the edition of the book is recent and the views expressed by the authors are correct. Textbook of established repute can be produced in evidence. A medical evidence witness has no professional privilege and therefore he must answer any question. Volunteering of information Information should not be volunteered beyond that is asked for in the question. So this is this is how physician should behave in court. Now the procedure of criminal trial. Now the types of trial. First is adversarial system. It is for the prosecution to prove their case to the magistrate beyond reasonable doubt. The defense should not have to prove innocence. So first type of trial is adversarial system, where prosecution has to prove that the person is guilty. Inquisitorial system, both the prosecution and defense have to make their cases to the court, which they choose which is more credible. So in second system, in inquisitorial system, both sides of the court has to present the case. The prosecution side and the defense side, both has to present their case. And depending on their presentation or depending on the facts given by them, the credibility of one side is established and statement and the decision is given accordingly. While in the first system, the defense has to prove the case and defense does not have to prove the innocence. So this is all about today's lecture. In this we discuss about what are the duties and how a physician should conduct in the court, what should be his behavior, how he should present himself, how he should present his evidences, how he should answer the questions. Thank you.